This latest chapter of Choujin X, we have to be proud of Tokyo because the amount of character development that this man has is really incredible. Because when we first got introduced to Tokyo for like chapters 1 to 34, we saw that Tokyo was kind of a person who couldn't really make up his mind. He always go with the flow. He never speaks up or anything. But in this chapter, we saw after the time skip, we see the development of Tokyo where he actually is fighting, doing hand to hand combat. In this chapter, we actually see him actually speaking up and taking control over the situation and speaking what's in his mind and telling people like his situation and how certain things would not work or would work. Because in the beginning of this chapter, we start off where we left off when he's found out that the operation on trying to bust Zora's drug dealers was pretty much is not enough time to actually go on ahead and investigate. On top of that, he's just like, hey, we got to analyze the Trojans that's actually being the bodyguards for the black market because we don't know how incredibly strong they are. And that feeds into the couple of chapters ago when we saw that Seto says like, hey, the Yamano of Mori, we have like actual skilled Trojans, but they're not strong enough. And that is really true because it took like 5 or 6 Trojans to actually stop the icy Iceman. And here Tokyo's like, hey, these people, they're helping out and they will protect and die for Zora. So they're going to be tough, powerful Trojans. So we don't know what abilities that they have. So we need to prepare ourselves for actually going to go ahead and fight them. On top of that, we need to find the main source before we shut everything down. So Tokyo suggested that the operations of looking for like the main source should be a month. Then he suggested that we should have a small group of team that will actually search for that headquarters, and the rest of the Trojans will be a guard of the Yamano Mori to protect it just in case if we actually get an attacked. And then here we see another Trojan who kind of like Arthur's idea of how to do this operation because one, Arthur is pretty much like the next in line. Like he's pretty much a big deal of like the rankings of the Yamano Mori. And also as two, she's unfond of Tokyo because one of his status in the Yamano Mori. On top of that, she thinks that Tokyo knows everything because he pretty much made the most dangerous part of the city becomes like kind of like safe and became their hero. So she's just like, who are you to talk all of this stuff? And she was just like, how dare you? Arthur made all of this plans and everything else. So you think you're a know-it-all. And then Tokyo was just like, well, I was the lead search for this. And then on top of that, if you look at it, this plan will actually lessens more tragedies. I'm sorry if I said that word wrong, but yes, less tragedies from Trojans to being like dead. On top of that, Tokyo is just like, this whole plan, it just give us more time to actually figure out, more stuff. And then so there, Arthur was just like, you know what, I kind of like Tokyo's idea. And then even Ellie joined in and she was just like, you know what, I like Tokyo's idea and Tokyo's my boy, so I'm gonna go ahead and join him. And then so everyone is just pretty much is just ignoring that Trojan person, and then they're just like actually intrigued of Tokyo's idea. Even Seto was just like, you know what, I like your idea, but instead of being a month, it's going to be 2 weeks, which everyone's in shock. Everyone was like, wait, what? Like 2 weeks? Like that's just unheard because, it normally takes 3 months for like the top searchers of Trojans, the Yamano Mori, to actually find like even the details, like even the small details. So Tokyo was just like, all right, cool, bet, I will do it. And then we see Tokyo, how he's trying to find information. And it's funny because we see day by day is happening while Tokyo is using his vulture powers and actually going to the sky to find something. And he's using birds, pigeons to actually do his work because he actually can talk to birds, communicate with them. And you can just see him how he's just making the birds actually see the map to see anything like wrong. So then after that, it was really interesting to see Tokyo, how he's trying to plan everything and how he actually figure out all the information of all the Chojins that's working for Zora and all the people from the Yamano Mori and their powers and abilities and how they're going to handle it. And then I kind of like the relationship between Tokyo and Simon because ever since that training island arc, they actually become better friends. And because it was really interesting to see that because when we first saw Simon and Tokyo first interact with each other, you can just tell that Simon did not like that boy. But then now all of a sudden you can just see the kind of like the respect between these guys. Even Simon told Tokyo, like, hey, that masked man, that's Batista and that's Sandek's brother, which shocked Tokyo. And Tokyo was just like, wait, what? And so Simon told Tokyo, like, yeah, he has the power to like actually like steal Chojin's powers, but it's not like Ellie's. It's pretty much is that he will take the body parts of a Chojin and put it on him. And so Tokyo was just in shock and hearing all this information about Batista and actually seeing like, wow, like he was part of the Yamano Mori and he doesn't know what, Batista's Choujin, original Choujin power is. So after all of that, Simon did tell Tokyo, like, hey, Batista's actually made a contract and contacted with a Choujin named New. And with that, they became one in himself. So he was just saying, like, hey, New was the person who actually murdered my family and my almost exterminated my whole clan. So he's just like, look, I want revenge. So he was just telling Tokyo like the whole situation about Batista since he sees that Tokyo actually have like a whole spread about everybody's and their whole information. So which was really interesting. So then after that, we see Azuma actually meets up with actually the pharmacist lady that we saw from the last chapter, who was trying to revive the dead Chojins from the Omega Tower. And then so there she was able to find a dead body wash up in shore. And then we see Azuma, he's actually there and she sees her and then she's freaking out because she's just like, oh man, what happened if I get caught? And like I'll be in trouble. But then Azuma just seems very unfazed. And then so he kind of just like gave her some snacks and kind of like some money and stuff. So then, and at this moment, Azuma thinks that she's just an innocent bystander that actually met with a body, not realizing that she is the actual pharmacist that's actually experimenting on the dead so that way they could prepare for Zora or whatever for the masked man. Because now that we see the pharmacist, she's actually interacting with Batista. And so she's telling Batista the progress of how she's like reviving like the dead. And she said that it only takes like a 10 to 20% with the current drug that she's using. So Batista's just like, hey, why don't you use Choujin serum and that will be much more effective. So then here we see her, she's working with Batista, and then the chapter just pretty much just ends as, Batista just says like, hey, you better not mess this up. And she's just like, all right. And then so now like she is just pretty much just in her office doing more experiment, and that's just pretty much how the chapter just ends. It seems as if that Pamela is actually working with Batista, and she is reviving people from the dead. But now that Batista is suggesting like, hey, with these 80 corpse, hey, I need them to transform into Trojan. So that's why he gave them the serum. So that way they could go ahead and find someone who's more suitable to get the mark of Zora. Because at this time, Zora is losing her powers and they can't afford Zora to actually, go extinct. And currently, right now, Tokyo, while he's doing his research and everything, trying to find this whole thing, he's just hoping that, the prediction of Zora of the Dark Calamity is false, because it seems as if that the Yamano Mori people don't want to talk to Zora, and he feels like there should be another way to handle this situation instead of just go ahead and fight. So he's just like, hey, can we just talk first a minute? And then if that doesn't work, then we can throw hands. So it just really is interesting to see how this chapter is playing out, and it's very, very building up to something more bigger. And I just can't wait to see what's happened next. But let me know down in the comment section how you guys feel about this chapter. What is your guys' favorite moments? What you guys think about it? And if you guys do like the video, please give it a like, subscribe, and remember, always be decent. This is the Monotone Man. I hope you guys have a wonderful day and be safe out here. Peace.